Well, we're back from our break, and we got you up to 79 with the HRA, but going back a little bit, when we met at Effie's, which would have been 78, um, when I learned that you could offer CEUs for docs, that's what we need for our wellness. We were
Oh, that's
doing,
right. That's right. So we gave you continuing
yeah,
education credit through the College of Preventive Medicine.
and we were doing preventing burnout in the helping professions. That was the weekend workshop. And so I pursued you to see if we could get that. And as I recall, I had to do a little bit of begging or cowering or groveling or something. But I remember it was, wow, this would make a big difference to our programs that we could offer that to docs, because we mostly had nurses and psychologists, and very few docs were interested in wellness early on. So as a result, I came back to the DC area. I'd lived in Baltimore 5 years, so I had a lot of contacts there. And remember coming to your Georgetown, what do you call the vertical houses?
Townhouse.
Yeah. We have a different name for them in Baltimore. Um, and got to know you personally and Jenny, and just hanging out and discovering our common interests. And then we did a workshop at Koinonia, where I had lived just north of Baltimore in the Green Spring Valley. It's a beautiful mansion that was an intentional community that had run its course, and now it was being used as a wedding venue, I think. No, maybe they were still doing a little bit there, because David Poist had left and another woman was running it. And so you would come, and you came to one of them, and then you brought your staff. Was it also the Koinonia that you brought the staff?
Yeah, I brought my whole staff from the American College of Preventive Medicine to attend a weekend workshop because I had gotten so much out of it that I thought that they would as well.
And that's where I met Ward, and I'm not sure how many were, was 3 or 4 at that point, wasn't it, that you brought, or of staff?
Yeah, Hazel Kaimowitz, and we had a director of education, Mary Lawler, I think her name was, and we had a attorney, Dennis Barber,
Oh,
who was lobbying Congress to get funding for preventive medicine residencies.
well, Ward was the one I remember the most, because we had ongoing contact. What an amazing guy. And then I put you on the panel. We would have a panel Sunday morning of doctors and nurses. I don't even remember who else was on it. We would pick them according to where, if we were in California or here. And you would start talking about your life, and you would break out into tears. And I thought, well, this is pretty radical, having a doctor so emotionally available. And so I used you as a plant to trigger other docs, or give them permission to be in their feelings. So, um,
Well, all I remember is that when I was talking about some very tender and sensitive things in my life, and I would start to cry, everybody in your workshop would want to hug me. So I'd start to cry, and a few minutes later, we were all standing up in a circle, hugging each other. And you were one of the early promoters of hugs. You said there was a minimum daily requirement of 3 hugs a
it
day,
was 4 then, but
and
it's up to 12
and
now.
and I was the promoter of hugging by my
Yeah,
tears.
yeah. So
Well, I'm
then,
glad I was useful to you.
yes, very, and you were useful to us with CEUs. And um, I don't know if there were more than 2 that we did in at Koinonia, because
Well, one of them was memorable to me. I brought my father with me,
oh
and I was
yeah,
about to have a wedding ceremony with my wife, and he came up to spend that day when I was speaking on your panel. And
that's right. Yes, I forgot all about that.
when we got to the point where I was talking about, I think, the most important things I'd learned in my life or something like that, I started to cry because I was talking about my relationship with my father.
Hmm.
I started crying.
Yep.
He started crying.
Oh, he did too.
Everybody started crying, and the whole workshop was in tears. And on
Wow.
the way home, he and I had the deepest conversation we'd ever had in our lives. And we crossed a bridge and we
Yeah.
reconciled from our earlier Oedipal tension and
Yeah.
conflict. And we became buddies.
Yeah, we didn't really go into how strife filled your relationship was starting when you came home at age 2 to through your whole adolescence and onward. So yeah, that was a
And that was the first day I ever remember my father saying that he loved me.
yeah.
And at our wedding celebration, I basically said, I have found you, Dad, and I'm not going to let you get away.
And I remember your last years with him. Um,
We were very close. My
yeah,
mother had died, and they had been best friends their whole life. And I became best friends with my dad.
yeah.
He spent the last 4 summers of his life with me, living with me in Charlottesville. And we had a lovely, wonderful end of life relationship. Thank goodness he lived to 92 so that we had a chance
Hmm.
to bask in the pleasure of being friends after having had so many years of tension between us.
So our paths have converged now, and I was using this weird word wellness, which still was pretty unknown. It was November of '79 when Dan Rather opened his piece on us saying wellness. Now, there's a word you don't hear every day, and that it was true. So, but what you were doing from the inside with the preventive medicine and other organizations that you worked with, all those different ones in your biography that I didn't even know about. So you're really making changes from within, and I was uh, storming the Bastille from outside, and we met up, and then
Well, I used to think of myself as a double agent with one foot inside the
yeah,
establishment and one side in the counterculture. I had spent days working with the free health clinic of the Black Panthers in Chicago while I was teaching at the University of Wisconsin. And there was always one part of me in the left side wanting to change the world, certainly during the protest against the Vietnam War, and another side of me that was in the establishment trying to change it from within.
now were you around when Fred Hampton was murdered in the Chicago police?
No,
'Cause that was Skip was involved in that, and I thought maybe you and Skip had overlapped to make even more coincidences.
no, but I heard about him from you.
Yeah. Then Metadocs. How I remember it happening was I was doing a workshop in Richmond,
Right?
and I had Sam at least and Elliot, and we're not sure if Marty was there or not. I think he wasn't, and you weren't available either because I would have dragged you out there. But I had a panel of docs who knew what wellness was to conclude the program, and I would have had you for sure if you'd have been available because I think we'd already done the one at Koinonia, and so we went back to my hotel room after the conference, and we're sitting around. Somehow or other, I had a candle burning, and we were sitting on the two beds, and we started singing the Pachelbel canon with the Alleluia words. And I thought, this is really weird. I'm with three other doctors, and we're doing this, and uh, maybe there's some potential here. And we had the idea of having a meeting or continuing to get together. And because Elliot had just gotten a place in Martha's Vineyard, he offered uh, his place. It didn't happen. I went off to Costa Rica. Um, Nothing happened until what was it, 82 or 84 when you picked up the
1984,
yeah
and I'd heard about your guys' meaningful meeting. We all knew that we knew a couple of people who were kindred spirits that were interested not just in illness and treatment and medicine, but in wellness and how to have people be healthy and exploring the basic idea of what does it mean to be well? What does it mean to be positively healthy? So I was asked if I would help plan the meeting. Marty and Sam both knew a retreat center called Seven Oaks Retreat Center, which was a pathwork spiritual center outside of Charlottesville. And I helped to organize the first meeting. And the one thing I remember was that we created a rule, a ground rule, that for those who came, nobody could talk about their work.
Mm-hmm.
So here we were, a bunch of doctors, men and women, both invited to this meeting. And the one thing we could not do was to talk about our work because that's what we would hide behind. So there we arrived. It turned out that by circumstance, only men came to the first meeting, and we did not know how to be with each other. And we were an awkward, nervous group of doctors. And we tried playing volleyball, and half of the group were competitive, and half of the group were absolutely not competitive. We did take walks in the woods down to the river, and so that began a long series of nature outings. But what we finally settled on was that each one of us would take a half an hour or an hour and share the story of our lives, starting with our parents, kind of the way you did right now this morning. And so that clicked. Each of us listened intently, and we discovered how much we had in common, especially strong mothers that strongly influenced us. And so at the subsequent meetings, because at the end of it, we'd had such a good time that we decided to have a second meeting again at Seven Oaks. So that would have been 1985. The fall of that year, the fall of 1984. And at that meeting, we actually said, let's give our group a name. And we came up with the term Metadocs. And I suggested this crazy idea of meeting twice a year for 20 years. And at the beginning of the meeting, everybody said I was certifiably insane. But by the end of the meeting, we already had agreed to the two people who would coordinate the next two meetings, and we were off and running.
And the name, as any chemistry major will get this, we were between orthodox and paradox.
So we were metaphysicians,
yeah.
Or what we called metadocs.
And in chemistry, the ortho and meta positions are opposite ends of the benzene ring, and the meta is the one in the middle. So there was a double entendre with the name. And we actually made a logo with a benzene ring with MDs in the meta position. So you really, launched it as you're really good at getting things off the ground. And you and I had actually had a meltdown at some point. And was it after I came up to Katona or something?
No, it was later. But you and I had had several meltdowns in the long history of our relationship.
And so we hadn't been speaking for a couple of years. And I was living in Costa Rica for the most part.
Well, you were in Costa
traveling
Rica.
back.
I had left Washington. I was working for IBM, going into occupational and environmental medicine. So our careers were sort of drifting further apart.
Yeah.
But Metadocs brought us back together
Yeah.
with a common interest in exploring the absolute edges of health and wellness and well-being.
So we were, that's when I realized we were brothers with a different mother. And it's been 46 years.
You also were teaching us how to do emotional process work, and you loved to do processing, and we all learned how to deal with intimate relationships, how to deal with conflicts and disagreements, and how to do our own processing of our own childhood wounds and the things that would allow us to grow personally.
Oh, and another component of it, I think it was Elliot that brought the Myers-Briggs in the form of Kersey's book had just come out where it had a self-test. And I remember most of us groaning, oh no, not another one of those. But was it Marty or was it Elliot that brought that to the group? And then we all did the test, and then we started talking about how we interacted.
Right, that was fascinating because we were learning how different we were,
yeah,
and how it came from a deep character within each one of us. And rather than wanting us to all be like each other, we began to appreciate the value of having different attitudes, different points of view, different personalities, and together, collectively, we were much more creative and powerful than if we were all the
Hmm.
same. I started using that as a way to give interviews when hiring people.
Yeah.
And when I formed my organization, Occupational Health Strategies, I knew that we had a bunch of brilliant, creative people who were not terribly well organized, and the support staff that we needed to be sensory, they needed to be judging, that is, they needed
Yeah.
to bring things to closure. And I advised Marty when he was hiring his staff to give the Myers Briggs to their people and to hire people who would bring closure to things. And that became a valuable and essential
Yeah.
tool in our each of our work. But we'd also made an agreement in Metadocs that we would not talk about work, we would not collaborate inside our meetings, but outside the meetings, various Metadocs began to take on collaborative projects.
Well, and two of them, Marty and Sam, had already started to practice together, and then you were in the same building as them. But I still remember Marty saying that they had struggles. They probably a P and a J. I'm guessing Sam's a J and Marty's a P. Marty saying it was like a marriage without sex, and describing the struggles because Sam and Marty were frequently processing stuff in the group, and then we dealt with births of children, and then deaths of parents, and then divorces, and then now going what 40 some years.
Yeah,
What's the count?
84, so this is 41 years that we've been meeting continuously. We've
Three
had we've
days,
had over 60 meetings.
and so now we're dealing with our own uh, deaths, and in fact, one died this last year.
Right, our first motto was twice a year for 20 years. The current motto is until death do us part. So we are now watching each
Yeah,
other go through the stages of retirement, of aging and incapacity and disability. The question of where do we want to live as we age? Do we want to age in place or find a community where we can be more strongly supported? How do we want to die? Many of our last meetings, which are now monthly on Zoom, we talk about themes like what do I regret? Or what have I learned that I'd like to share with the rest of the world? What
and
are the
we've got to take a break here again. So let's uh, be back shortly.